What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 25 of the How to Hardscape Podcast, where we talk to you about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And today we are going to talk about knowing your numbers. That includes overhead expenses, labor costs, material costs, your profit, and later job costing all in one. And what this is really just talking about how you can know your numbers and know that you're making back the numbers that you want with every project that you are estimating. And we in fact have a budget and estimate spreadsheet on our website available for you. If you go to howtohardscape.com/products, you can find it right there. And you can learn more about it and how you can use this spreadsheet to really streamline your estimating process, as well as knowing that you're going to make all your numbers back and your profit on every job. And at the end, when the project is all finished, you can compare the actual numbers of what you earned from that job to what you estimated and know where you can improve your estimating process. And it's also great to allow it to you to hand off that estimating process to somebody else in your business, to allow them to take over it, because all you need to do is input your numbers for your budget, any materials, and your production rates. And then from that point, anybody in your business can pick it up, put in some measurements, and get a number that'll be the same for anybody in your business that inputs those same numbers for that project. So a great way to streamline the estimating process in your business, as well as relieve some of that pressure that you have to get estimates out in time. Now, on our Instagram page, we reached a milestone. We reached the 10,000 followers, and we are really excited about how much momentum you guys have created for us in this Instagram page, in our podcast, and everything like that. So we are going to be giving away one of these spreadsheets, and all you need to do is to either leave a review on Apple Podcasts for this podcast. Let us know what you like about this podcast. Leave us that rating and review. We will be entering those into draws. If you don't use Apple Podcasts, you can simply go on your Instagram page, screenshot your favorite podcast episode, put it in your story, tag us, and let us know why you like listening to this podcast, or what it is about that episode that you really enjoyed, or anything you want to talk about in a short little caption in that story. Just make sure that you tag us in the story so that we know to enter you into the draw. And if you have already purchased the budget and estimate spreadsheet, you can still enter. We'll give you a refund. And at the end of the day, if you are not even interested in the budget and estimate spreadsheet, we will give you the equivalent a cash amount for that instead. So either way, no matter what, you can enter this, and you can you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can do an Instagram story, whatever you want to do to be able to enter this draw. If you do both, you'll be entered in twice. If you do a Apple Podcast review, you're entered in. If you do a Instagram story, you'll also be entered into the draw. Now, this is going to be 1 week from today. We will be drawing the winner. So the 1 week from today is February 26th when you're hearing this. And 1 week from February 26th is March 4th. We will be drawing a winner for this. So get everything in if you are interested in getting into this before the time is up. And if you're hearing this after March 4th, I'm sure we'll be thinking of more giveaways for you moving forward. So that's just a very small appreciation from us, from our side, for everybody that's listening into the show, and everybody that has followed us on Instagram, and everybody that just shared everything along the way. I couldn't let you know how appreciative I am of everybody that just tunes in every week, everybody that helps share, everybody that has supported the How to Hardscape since we started this year or last year. Again, thank you so much, and I hope that we can do something even bigger as a giveaway, as an appreciation as we move forward with this in the future, and to really continue to create an amazing community around this. And once again, thank you so much. So without further ado, let's just jump right in to this podcast episode about knowing your numbers. When it comes to knowing your numbers in your business, we're really starting with overhead expenses. And these are expenses that no matter what, if you are operating your business that day, whether you're on a job site or not, just taking the day off, these are expenses that are going to happen every single day. It's costing your business to be running no matter what. This is going to be charged every day to your business. And these are things that we need to say pay monthly, pay yearly, pay weekly, whatever it may be, daily, things that we can budget for. And then we can average out a per day amount that it costs us for these overhead expenses. Now, when we're talking overhead expenses, at least when we're talking about using our spreadsheet, our system that we've implemented in our business, we're going to run down different things that would be included in this. So typically this is done at the beginning of the year, before you get going, before you get moving. So things like equipment expenses. And when we are calculating equipment expenses, we're thinking about replacing that equipment, not the equipment that you've already invested into for your business, because either you've already recouped that amount to be able to purchase that piece of equipment, or that's treated as an investment. So you just started your business, you've already got that truck, that trailer, and all of that. So you haven't had any clients to be able to recoup that money, to be able to spend it on that piece of equipment. So that's treated as an investment and not a equipment expense. So equipment expenses are, what is it going to cost you to be able to replace your existing truck, your existing trailer, your saw, your compactor, all of these things? What is it going to cost you, and how many years use are you going to get out of this? To be able to come up with a price that it's going to cost you per year for that truck, for that trailer, for that saw, compactor. Right. So your existing truck, how long is that going to last you? And how much is it going to cost you for a new truck? And how long is that new truck going to last you for? And how much does that new truck cost you? In addition to that, how much are you going to get back when you sell that piece of equipment? So say you're going to get 5 years out of a saw and you're going to resell it for $500 after that. That saw costs you $2,500 to buy. You're going to sell it for $500, so that saw really costs you $2,000 over those 5 years, which works out to $400 each year that saw is going to cost you. And then you're going to divide that $400 per year by each day in the season that you are going to be working for. So that gives you your overhead expense amount for that particular piece of equipment. And then you're going to continue that for every piece of equipment that you have in your business or that you are going to be purchasing in the future. And start to save for that amount by billing it into every job that you do. And when we're talking about equipment in our business, what we're talking about is anything that has a motor in it or anything really above $500 that we are purchasing for our business. When it comes to tools, we are budgeting a specific amount per year that we are going to be using to incorporate the same as any overhead expense. So say we're budgeting $5,000 for the year for tools. These are hand tools, things that we go through often, or things that we're going to be purchasing in the future. $5,000 for that year. We're going to divide that by how many working days that we have available for the season. So if you are only working, say, 36 weeks a season, how many days of those weeks are you going to be working? And then dividing it by that amount to give you how many dollars it costs you for those tools that you're budgeting for, and what you should be billing out to your customers or including in the estimates that you're putting out. And the same thing goes for vehicle expenses, things like insurance, gas. Things like insurance, either you pay for monthly or yearly, and you just, calculate your yearly amount and do the same thing. Divide by how many days you are working for that season. And fuel expenses, you can either look at last year's budgeted amount or last year's actual amount that you spent on fuel and decide, are you going to be spending more on fuel this year, do you think? Remember, this is a budgeted amount. It's not exactly going to be 100% accurate, but you're deciding how much fuel you're going to go through to be able to, or tools that you're going to go through or purchase to be able to incorporate that into every estimate that's going out, so that you're getting an amount per day that it costs you to run your business. And then comes to other overhead expenses, things like rent, things like marketing, online and offline. Even overtime is at a budgeted amount. So how much overtime did you spend last year? Because you're not going to know exactly how much overtime it's going to take you. That's usually things that go above and beyond. So it's a budgeted amount. How much overtime did you spend last year? Do you think you're going to be doing more this year? How much percent more? Do you want an overtime calculator to decide a little bit more on that based on the amount of hours that you think your crew is going to work per week? That gives you a good budgeted amount of overtime that you're going to be spending on them. And our spreadsheet has a built-in overtime calculator so that you can calculate that amount for your business. Other overhead expenses that you need to think about, again, marketing is a budgeted amount. Look at your actual numbers last year. Are you going to increase that, decrease that? Was that sufficient in getting more leads into your business? Maybe keep it the same. Was it insufficient? Do you need more? Put a little percentage more on top of that this year. Business liability insurance, workers insurance, any other things that you are spending on, regardless if you're on site or not, it's going to be costing your business. These are all overhead expenses that you really need to think about and budget into your business budget and to incorporate into every estimate. So that's the basis of overhead expenses. First, you need to decide as a business, how many weeks are you going to be operating? You can maybe look at last year's weeks, how many weeks you got out of it if you have a winter that you don't operate during. How many days of that week do you work, or does your crew work? And how many hours does your crew put in per day? And then you can use that information to find out all of your equipment expenses, all of your vehicle expenses, all of your tools that you're budgeting for, and your overhead expenses, to divide it by how many days you're active and to understand how much your business is operating per day, no matter if you're on the job site or not. Which brings me to labor costs. This is also something that you can include in there as your per day amount that you need to make back. Regardless of the job, you need to make this money back because you're going to be paying your workers no matter what. When it comes to salary employees, you need to decide, their salary is based on a yearly amount. Are you going to pay them a bonus on top of that? Are you going to be including benefits? Are those benefits worked out by the year? If all this for a salary employee works out to, how much it's going to cost you for that employee for the year, you can treat that like an overhead expense, divided by the amount of working days that you have in your business and incorporating that in as an overhead expense. But if it's an hourly employee, that's based on the job and how many hours are going to be allocated for that job. So that's where the differences between salary employees and hourly employees comes into play. If it's hourly employee and you pay them benefits, insurance on top of that, a bonus, if you can't work that out to an hourly amount, then input that as another overhead expense. These are things that you can work out as how much it's going to cost you for the full year for that amount, like a bonus. What that bonus is going to be at the end of the year. Input that as an overhead expense because it'll just get treated the same, billed out based on the amount of hours for every job that you are estimating. Now, when it comes to deciding how much time is going to be allocated to a job, what we have been working on doing in our business is creating production rates. So that's where we are taking notes out in the field for how long it takes us for every portion of the project that we are doing, from the excavation to the base prep to the bedding layer to the installation of the pavers to the cutting, everything that goes into that project. We are taking note of how long it takes us. But not only that, we're also taking note of the different processes that we are using to complete each of those phases of the project. For example, excavation. Are we using a mini-X? Are we using a mini skid steer, a skid steer? Are we hand digging it and wheelbarrowing it out? Things like that need to be accounted for with each of those production rates. Even base preparation. What are we prepping? Are we prepping a gravel? Are we prepping a 3/4 clear bedding layer? What are we prepping? Sand or 1/4 inch chip? All these things need to be accounted for, and then you can create production rates around these things so that when somebody picks up your system, picks up your spreadsheet or whatever system you have in place, they can sit down and just be able to type in a measurement. And then based on those production rates, it'll tell you, automatically fill in how many hours should be allocated to that for your crew. So this is what's so important about production rates in being able to streamline your estimation process, as well as to be able to get more efficient with your estimating process. Because if you have a lot of data for each of these production rates that you're inputting in, you will be able to take an average. Say you're doing a front walkway excavation of 200 square feet, and you've done, say, a 500 square foot front walkway, a 100 square foot front walkway, a 300 square foot front walkway. If you take an average of that square footage amount, and then you can then take an average of the amount of time it takes you to complete that. And then if you simply type in a square footage amount when you are estimating the project, it'll take that average and just multiply it based on, how much it needs to. That's how a production rate works simply when you are estimating. And it's amazing how much easier it is for anybody to pick up your system and to be able to get an estimate out using these production rates. Now, production rates take into factor the work on the job site, but there's things that come up in a working day, that you need to factor in as your efficiency factor for your crew, for your workers. So production rates, when you input them, it won't take into factor things like your crew taking a lunch or taking breaks, or getting clocking in at the shop and driving to the job site, or at the end of the day cleaning up and then coming back to the shop and clocking out. These things come into play for your efficiency factor. So if it takes you 20 hours to complete a project based on your production rates, you need to take in consideration efficiency factor. So how much of those hours are they actually working? Or we know they're working 20 hours, but how many more hours should we include on that project to be able to get at an amount that they're not working for? For example, if they work an 8-hour day, they drive half an hour from the shop to the job site and get ready, and then they start working. If they clean up and drive back to the shop and clock out for half an hour, that's already an hour of that 8-hour day taken away. And let's say, just for ease of calculating sake, it's a 1 hour lunch, including breaks and everything. So that's 2 hours of an 8-hour workday that they're going to be not working. So that is a 25% loss in labor there. And we need to factor that into our 20 hours and increase that by 25%. And that's how we come across our actual labor amount that we're going to be billing out for a specific estimate in this case. And there's other things that we need to factor into that we do in the budget and estimate spreadsheet, like labor burden. Labor burden is things such as, hiring a new employee. They're not going to be 100% as efficient as somebody who's seasoned in your company. So how much should you factor in as a percentage to include for somebody like that? That's going to not only take up somebody's time to train them, but also their learning curve is going to be, something that they need to work on to become efficient, to become a better worker in your crew, in your business. So that's labor burden. How much percentage are you going to mark up your labor to be able to make back that amount? Things like that come into play with your labor. And that's how you budget for labor with every estimate going out. At least that's how we do it in our business. And the final thing is the material costs. With our budget and estimate spreadsheet, you create a material catalog based on the materials that you install for every project that you put out. So if you're comfortable with certain products, you can input them in there, and it acts as a material catalog. So you can simply go into a drop down, pick the material, the amount that it costs you will be automatically filled in there. And then you can simply type in the square foot amount, the piece amount, whatever it may be, and your estimate will be completed with that material cost. There's also room for material cost markup, because we definitely want to mark up our materials, just in case, say you need more materials you didn't calculate correctly, or just to make us up a little bit more money on top of that with our materials. And with all of this completed, you can go ahead and mark up everything, your whole estimate. That's your profit amount, what you are budgeting for your profit. What do you want to make on that project? And hopefully, your crew is a little bit more efficient than usual, and you make a little bit more money on top of that because you finish the job quicker. And you've already budgeted for the overhead expenses, for the labor costs for that project. If it's completed quicker, you're going to make more money on that project than usual. And, with your markup of labor, with your markup of materials and your overhead expenses, hopefully you earn a little bit more profit than you actually budgeted for that project. And that's where job costing comes into play. Job costing is the practice of taking your estimate and comparing it to the actual numbers that come away after that project is completed. So like I already talked about, labor, you budgeted a certain amount of hours for that, and that takes into factor how much overhead expenses are going to be budgeted for that project. That time that we're budgeting for that project takes into factor both labor costs and the overhead expenses that are being billed out for that project. So at the end of the day, if you are more efficient, then you're going to earn more money, more profit from that project. If you are less efficient, if it took you more time, you're going to lose a little bit more money. You're going to have less profit from that project at the end of the day. And if you do job costing, you're able to keep the receipts that went into that specific job from materials, input them, and compare that number based on the materials that you estimated out. So if your estimate was wrong on the material portion, next time, maybe mark that up a little bit more, or maybe get your measurements right a little bit more. Maybe it was your measurements were off a bit. You had to go back and get more pavers, more material, whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, if you're going back to get more materials from the yard, from the stone yard, whatever it may be, that's going to cost you in labor hours. So not only your materials are going to be off, but maybe you were less efficient because of those materials were being off. And that's something that you need to look at with your job costing. Or maybe on the other hand, your materials were right and you actually made money on your materials, but your labor was still inefficient. You went over the amount of hours you budgeted. Maybe you need to increase some of your budgeted hours. Maybe you need to mark it up a little bit more. Or, maybe some of your crew members called in sick, your foreman called in sick for a couple days on that project, and that's what put you behind schedule. And that's what threw you off, because you didn't have a foreman on site to be able to navigate everything that's going into that site. There's so many things that you need to consider to be able to understand where the estimate went right or where the estimate went wrong, and where you can improve in your estimating process. Because business is all about, learning from your past mistakes or, successes, and how you can improve on your business year after year, day after day, week after week, month after month. And to be able to implement a system that you can track these things properly. You can track your numbers. You can make sure that you are knowing your numbers and how they're being billed out into every project and every hour that you're billing out. And at the end of the day, be able to compare the actual amount to the what actually happened on the job site to the estimated amount that you billed out the customer will really help you realize, what different things you need to change in your estimation process. Maybe your production rates are off a little bit. Maybe you need to increase the percentage for your material costs, whatever it may be. It's going to help you with that job costing. It's going to, that process at the end of it all is really going to help you know your numbers even that much better and to improve yourself, your business, and so much more. So if this budget and estimate spreadsheet interests you, you can always go to howtohardscape.com/products to learn more about it. There's videos up there about how you use it. It's fairly explanatory when you get into it. I want it to be extremely valuable to everybody that's using it. I'm here to help. And regardless if you are not wanting to use it or not, those videos are going to really give you a visual about how to do these different processes and how to implement this into your business. If you want to spend time on that, or if you wanted to just purchase the spreadsheet and have it ready to go and ready for you in your business to implement right away. I see a lot of value in it. I've worked on it for many years and implemented it into my business to be able to know my numbers better. And I think it's a really valuable tool to be able to implement in your business. And you know what? If you are thinking of, we've had Mark Bradley from LMN on the show to talk about that software because that's a really powerful software. I've heard a lot of great things about it. I've used their budgeting tool before. Love it. It's incredible. I don't see the use for such $200+ a month software in my business at the moment. So that's why I created this spreadsheet. And that's why that's what this spreadsheet is really for, who this spreadsheet is for. If you are interested in LMN, it's much more powerful than the spreadsheet. It takes into factor so much more than just budgeting and estimating, which this spreadsheet does. But if you are not ready for that monthly amount to be paying in your business, this is a great stepping stone towards that, to get you used to these systems that you can implement in your business. So say if LMN is 2 years down the road for your business, then this budgeting and estimating spreadsheet is definitely worth it for you to implement in your business. If you never have the use for a system like LMN in your business, but you want something to be able to budget and estimate and know your numbers, this spreadsheet is for your business. If LMN is something that you have thought about implementing in your business 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road, maybe this spreadsheet is not quite for you. 1 year, maybe you're thinking of LMN next year. Then possibly you could invest in this spreadsheet for your business. But 6 months down the road, I wouldn't see the value in it there for you for your business, because LMN, if you're not going to get enough use out of it to justify the investment. So that's just where I'll leave that for now. And once again, this spreadsheet is how I run my numbers in my business. I'm not saying it's the only way that you can run your numbers in your business. There's many different ways, I'm sure. This is the most straightforward way for me to be able to explain it to you and for me to implement in my business. Once again, not saying it's the only way, and I would love to hear about the ways that your process differs from mine, and would love to understand that a little bit more. If you want to reach out to us, we'd love to open up a discussion about this. And thank you once again for joining us here, and thank you to everyone who's followed along with this podcast, who's followed us on our Instagram. Once again, join in the giveaway. Leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app, or screenshot your favorite How to Hardscape podcast episode, upload it to an Instagram story, tag us, and let us know a little blurb about why you like that episode, why you like this podcast, whatever it may be. We will enter you into either 1 or 2 times into the draw for one of these budget and estimate spreadsheets, or the equivalent amount in money, whatever it may be, we'll send it to you. And once again, thank you so much to everyone that is supporting this podcast, our Instagram page, whatever it may be, How to Hardscape. We're just trying to get a lot of value out there into this industry, and to pay back the amount of things that we've learned over the years, as well as learning more things and having these industry leaders on the podcast for us to learn more things, and for you yourself to be constantly learning having our voices in your ear to be able to learn more while you're working, while you're doing other things. That's this value that I see with these podcasts, is that it's a great passive way to learn more things. You know, you can be doing anything while you're listening and learning more, and being extremely productive while doing so. Once again, thank you so much to everybody listening to the podcast and joining us on our Instagram page, Facebook page, wherever it may be, How to Hardscape. We look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.